that feeling, you know the one, right? It grips you. Your stomach just coils up tight. Maybe your shoulders are like way up by your ears. And there's this buzzing, restless energy under your skin. Makes it hard to sit still.
Yeah, that state of suspension. It's unmistakable.
Exactly. When you're waiting, waiting for a text back from someone important, or maybe waiting for medical results that could just change everything.
Instantly, yeah. Or a job offer after you poured everything into the interview.
Or even just the outcome of a really difficult conversation you just had. You're just hanging there.
In all those moments, and I mean, there are so many others like them, you're basically in limbo, waiting. And the outcome feels completely, utterly out of your hands.
It's such a common feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
And deeply uncomfortable.
Profoundly human, I think. And universally uncomfortable, like you said. This deep unease. It seems to pop up exactly when we want peace and certainty the most.
Right. But that's when we feel like we have the least control over what's next.
Precisely. And our sort of default instinct kicks in, doesn't it? We tend to worry obsessively, or we try frantically to figure out ways to control the future, which, well, we usually can't.
Or we just want to escape. Just get away from the discomfort of not knowing, of being stuck in that uncertainty.
Absolutely. That escape hatch looks pretty appealing sometimes.
Yeah. That sense of calm we crave, that feeling grounded, it just seems to evaporate in those moments, doesn't it?
It really does.
So, okay, our mission with this deep dive is to really lean into this feeling, the stress of waiting. We want to understand, why it feels so intense, so overwhelming sometimes, and then explore what insights we can pull from different places. We've got material looking at psychological approaches like acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT.
Right, ACP comes up a lot.
And research on stress and how we perceive control, and even some really personal reflections on finding peace when you just can't dictate the outcome.
Yeah.
It's a really rich mix of sources we have to work with here.
It really is. And I think as we start digging in, a key insight that starts to, surface, and one we'll probably keep coming back to, is that finding peace when you're waiting isn't really about making the uncertainty magically disappear. It's not about suddenly getting the answer or forcing things.
Right, because often you just can't.
Exactly. It's much more about fundamentally transforming your relationship with that uncertainty itself. It's about finding, maybe in surprising ways, where your true control actually lies. And spoiler alert, it's often not where we think it is.
Okay, interesting. Let's really unpack this feeling then, this waiting stress.
Huh.
Because it's so visceral, so physical sometimes. Why is it so uncomfortable for us? What's the root of that?
Well, at a really basic level, our brains seem hardwired to crave stability. We like predictability. We like certainty.
We want to know what's happening, what's coming next.
Exactly. We want to know how to respond. So being in that in-between state, that kind of transition phase, the forces call it a liminal space. It's just inherently unsettling for a system.
Right. You're on the threshold. Not quite here, not quite there yet. Liminal space. That term, it pops up again and again in the material. It's defined as like occupying a position at or on both sides of a boundary or threshold.
A transition.
Yeah, a transitional stage of a process.
Yeah.
You're literally on the edge of something new, but you haven't fully stepped into it. Still in transition.
Precisely. And the sources give some, I think, really helpful examples of what these liminal spaces can look and feel like. Sometimes they're metaphorical, representing a state of mind or a life stage.
Like what?
Like being caught between two really big decisions, maybe feeling torn, uncertain which way to go. Or that image of swinging on a trapeze, that terrifying moment.
Oh, yeah.
Where you've let go of the first bar, you're flying through the air, but you haven't caught the next one yet. You're just suspended.
Yeah.
Utter uncertainty, relying on forces outside your immediate grip.
Wow, that's a powerful image. And the sources also mention physical liminal spaces, right?
Yeah.
Places we actually go through.
Yeah, places we often pass through without really thinking about their in-betweenness, like being on a staircase you've left one floor, haven't reached the next, or a bridge you're suspended over something, neither here nor there.
A train, an airplane, an airport lounge.
Exactly. All spaces designed for transition. And, if you imagine getting stuck in one of those places for a long time, that feeling of unease just gets amplified, doesn't it?
Definitely. But then there are the really profound ones, the emotional liminal spaces, the big life transitions.
Yes, and these often feel the most challenging because the boundaries are fuzzy and the stages before and after can be difficult too. Things like navigating a serious illness, your own or a loved one's. You're in this process, maybe healing, maybe coping, but the outcome is uncertain. The before is gone, the after isn't clear.
Moving house is another one. Your old life is literally packed in boxes. The new one isn't quite set up yet. You're in transit.
Grief after loss, that's a huge one. You're navigating a world that's fundamentally changed, trying to adapt to a new reality that doesn't feel real yet.
Divorce, too. Or even things we think of as happy, like graduations or weddings. They're still liminal, aren't they?
Absolutely. They mark a profound ending and a significant beginning at the same time. One door slams shut, and you're standing there, not quite sure how to open the next one or what's even behind it.
That really makes sense. It's the in-between that feels so shaky because the old structure, the familiar ground, is gone and the new one isn't solid yet. But the sources also bring up something really powerful, maybe even a bit uncomfortable, which is that a huge part of the suffering we feel when we're waiting, it's not just the external situation, it's generated internally.
Right, by our own minds.
And specifically, how our minds work with language.
This is a really central point, especially from the ACT perspective in the material. And it's quite radical, actually. It suggests that the normal, everyday psychological processes of a totally normal, healthy human mind, they can readily become destructive. They can become sources of suffering. And the facilitator, maybe even the culprit sometimes, is human language itself. Our amazing ability to use words, images, sounds, gestures, expressions to represent the world and, crucially, our inner experiences.
Language as a root of suffering. That feels so counterintuitive. Isn't language how we connect, how we learn, how we build things?
And it absolutely is. One source explicitly calls it a double-edged sword. On the bright side, it's incredible. It lets us build complex maps of reality, plan for the future, learn from the past without having to, get eaten by the lion ourselves.
Right, learn from others' experiences.
Share incredibly complex knowledge, imagine and create things that never existed before. It's the bedrock of so much human achievement and connection, no doubt about it.
Okay, but the dark side?
The dark side is that the same representational power lets us use language to lie, manipulate, spread hatred, conjure fear where there's no immediate physical danger. And, most relevant for us today, internally, inside our own heads, we use this amazing tool to do some really unhelpful, sometimes downright destructive things to ourselves, especially when we're waiting and feeling uncertain.
How so?
Well, think about it. We can relive painful past events with such vividness, right? We feel the emotions almost as strongly as if they were happening now.
Oh, definitely. Replaying arguments or mistakes.
Exactly. Or we can scare ourselves silly by imagining all sorts of terrifying, often highly improbable future scenarios, getting lost in these fearful predictions.
The what-if spiral.
Totally. We constantly make unfavorable comparisons with others based on abstract ideas. Their life looks better, they're more successful, or we turn that judgment inward. We use language for harsh self-criticism. I'm not good enough. I'm too stupid. I'm unlovable.
So because we have language, our mind can basically just whip up pain and suffering anytime, anywhere, regardless of what's actually happening around us.
That's the power and the danger. The sources give this really poignant example. Susan, on her wedding day, objectively a moment of pure joy, love, celebration, she is happy.
Right.
But then a thought pops up, a thought made of language. I wish my father were here. And suddenly the complex memory of her father, maybe his absence, maybe even, as the source mentions, the pain around remembering his suicide, it just floods her system.
Wow. So instantly, right in the middle of joy, there's suffering.
Yeah.
Generated purely by a thought.
Entirely by thought and language. And this capacity is always there, always switched on. It's especially active when we're waiting for an uncertain outcome because our minds naturally try to solve the uncertainty by running through all the possibilities. And we often tend to focus on the negative ones, don't we?
We do. It feels like preparing, but it often just feels like worrying. This isn't just like abstract emotional pain, is it? This constant stream of negative thinking. It affects us physically.
Oh, absolutely critical point. We all know about the fight, flight, or freeze response, right? Usually we think it's triggered by immediate physical danger, seeing a bear, a car swerving towards us.
Yeah, survival instinct.
But the profound thing the sources highlight is this. When we simply think about dangerous or negative stuff, when we get caught up in those fearful future predictions or replay painful memories, our brain and body react as if the threat is happening right now.
Seriously. just thinking about it triggers the same response.
The alarm system goes off.
Yeah.
That anticipatory dread, the anxiety about what might happen.
A knot in your stomach.
Exactly. That dread, tied to our thoughts and feelings about the uncertain future, it triggers the whole physiological cascade. Heart races, muscles tense, breathing changes, stress hormones flood in.
Okay. Ow.
And that, in turn, often leads to behavioral changes, usually aimed at stopping the unpleasant feeling. So, for example, canceling plans to go out, not because there's any actual danger, but just to avoid the feeling of anxiety that gets triggered by thinking about the social situation.
So the thought creates the feeling triggers the physical reaction.
Yeah.
And then we act to avoid the feeling. It's a whole chain reaction.
It's a complete loop.
So the stress of waiting,
Yeah.
it's not just about the external thing we're waiting for. It's massively amplified, sometimes maybe even created by our mind's amazing, but sometimes troublesome ability to use language to spin these scary stories.
It's your horror movies or past regrets.
And then our body jumps in like it's real. Right now, it's like our thoughts are adding this huge layer of suffering on top of the basic uncertainty.
Exactly. The mind's narrative layer adds immense weight. And given how incredibly uncomfortable that internal experience is, the anxious thoughts, the physical tension, our default setting, which is totally understandable, but often really unhelpful, is to try and make those painful feelings and thoughts just go away, which leads us right into the most common, instinctive, but ultimately, counterproductive responses we use when we're stuck waiting.
Which the sources nail down as control and avoidance.
Specifically, this key ACC concept called experiential avoidance, which sounds fancy, but it just means the deliberate attempt to escape from, get rid of, or avoid contact with unwanted private experiences.
Private experiences meaning?
Thoughts, feelings, memories, bodily sensations, urges, basically anything happening inside your skin that feels uncomfortable or painful.
So like trying to push down that anxious feeling in your gut or telling yourself really firmly, just stop thinking about the bad news you might get.
That's exactly it. And, while doing that experiential avoidance might give you some fleeting short-term relief. Maybe the anxiety dips for a second when you distract yourself hard enough or cancel that thing you were dreading.
Yeah, that brief phew feeling.
Right. But the sources really emphasize the long-term cost. It's significant, often damaging. Your life starts to get smaller.
How does it get smaller?
Well, the classic example is social phobia. Someone feels intense anxiety in social situations, right? So they start avoiding parties, meetings, gatherings to avoid that feeling. Initially, avoiding brings relief, so the behavior gets reinforced.
Makes sense.
But over time, what happens? Their world constricts. They miss out on chances for connection, for fun, for professional growth, maybe. Their life becomes increasingly limited, all driven by the effort not to feel anxious.
Wow. Okay. And the sources link this pattern to depression too, right?
Absolutely. It can become a vicious cycle. People experiencing depression often engage in a lot of experiential avoidance. They might be trying desperately to escape feelings like sadness, fatigue, guilt, or that heavy feeling of worthlessness.
So they might do what? Stay in bed?
Yeah, stay in bed, withdraw from friends, stop doing activities they used to enjoy, maybe watch endless TV. The temporary relief from not having to face those difficult feelings reinforces the avoidance.
But by avoiding the feelings, they also avoid anything that might actually help.
Exactly. They miss opportunities for positive experiences, connection, activity, things that could potentially shift their mood. The avoidance keeps them trapped in that depressive pattern.
And this avoidance thing seems really connected to that other idea you mentioned, fusion, getting totally hooked by our thoughts.
Oh, they're deeply intertwined, like two sides of the same coin. We mainly try to push away or avoid the thoughts and feelings that we are fused with.
Fused meaning we believe them completely, like they're absolute truth.
Yeah, like the thought is reality. So if you're fused with the thought, I'm worthless, you don't just see it as a thought, you experience it as a fundamental truth about yourself. And the feeling that comes with that, excruciating.
So naturally you want it to stop.
Your gut instinct is make this feeling and the thought driving it go away. So you deploy avoidance tactics, which can be obvious, like withdrawing physically or socially.
Right.
Or much more subtle, like staying incredibly busy to avoid having a quiet moment with your thoughts, or using substances, drugs, alcohol to numb out, overeating, even paradoxically getting stuck in rumination or constant worrying.
Wait, worrying is avoidance. How does that work?
It seems counterintuitive, right? But often, worrying is a mental attempt to solve a problem or control the future, precisely to avoid the raw feeling of uncertainty or helplessness. But it doesn't actually solve anything. It just keeps you tangled up with the painful thoughts and anxieties.
Okay, so that's one side, trying desperately to control our internal world by avoiding the uncomfortable bits. And the other side, the sources say, is that we're trying just as hard to control the external world, especially the outcome we're waiting for.
And that is pinpointed as the other massive source of stress and suffering, clinging so tightly to the illusion of control, this deeply ingrained, often totally unconscious belief that we can, or maybe even should, be able to control outcomes and events that are just fundamentally not in our power to command.
The illusion of control.
Yeah. And the sources argue pretty strongly that finding peace depends heavily on consciously recognizing and then surrendering this illusion of control over external things.
There was that analogy in one source about being a driver, or maybe more like a passenger.
Yes. That one really sticks, doesn't it? It paints this picture of us acting like shaky teenagers, convinced we should be driving the car, even though we're firmly buckled into the passenger seat. And maybe there's a much more competent driver actually at the wheel.
And we're sitting there jamming on imaginary brakes.
Oh, wait, knuckling the armrest, jaws clenched, shoulders hunched.
As if our sheer tension and worry can somehow steer the car or control the traffic lights.
Exactly. As if our internal state can magically influence the external reality.
So applying that to life.
Yeah.
What kinds of things are we trying to control from that passenger seat?
Oh, the sources list so many common ones. Things like trying to control your child's ultimate destiny or all their choices, trying to micromanage work results way beyond your actual contribution, trying to control the economy or your financial future in a volatile world.
Dictating how your spouse should act or feel.
Yes. Or even trying to engineer your child's spiritual beliefs or path. These are all things that matter deeply to us, of course, and we absolutely have influence within these areas.
But not ultimate control.
We cannot control the final outcomes. Yet, we pour massive amounts of mental and emotional energy into trying to do just that.
That really connects for me with that joke the comedian Brad Stein mentioned in one source.
Yeah.
About the God is my co-pilot bumper sticker.
Right. His point was, if God is just your co-pilot, you must think you're the really good driver, the one in charge, just needing a bit of divine navigation backup.
Yes.
But the source flips it, suggesting that maybe for many of these big life outcomes we worry about, we are the shaky teenagers, maybe even toddlers, who've forgotten which side of the road to drive on.
Trying to grab the wheel.
When maybe the journey is actually being navigated by something or someone far more capable, whether you call that God or the universe or just the complex, uncontrollable flow of life itself. And as long as we're fused with the idea that we must be in control, and as long as we cling to that illusion that we can dictate external outcomes, or even fully control our own stream of thoughts and feelings, peace is probably going to stay pretty elusive.
Worrying itself is just part of that illusion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a desperate, usually futile attempt to control the future just by thinking really hard about it.
It feels like doing something productive, maybe, but it rarely is. It just keeps us stuck in the stress.
Okay. So the picture's getting clearer. The intense stress of waiting comes from, well, the uncertainty itself, but it's massively amplified by our mind's negative storytelling and our instinctive but ultimately unhelpful attempts to control the uncontrollable or avoid feeling bad.
And those default strategies, control and avoidance, they might give temporary relief, but in the long run, they trap us, they shrink our lives, they keep the suffering going.
So if trying to control everything and avoid discomfort doesn't work, what does help? How do we find some peace while we're waiting? How do we navigate that shaky liminal space without being totally consumed by dread?
Right. And this brings us to the real heart of the insights in the sources. True, sustainable peace isn't found by somehow managing to control the outcome or eliminate the difficult thoughts and feelings that pop up during waiting. It's found by fundamentally transforming your relationship with them. This is such a powerful theme, and we see it running through different approaches, like ACT that we mentioned, and also ancient philosophies like Stoicism.
Let's dig into the ACT perspective first, then.
Yeah.
Psychological flexibility, you mentioned that phrase. What does it actually mean when we're talking about waiting?
Right, psychological flexibility. In ACT terms, as the sources explore it, it's basically your ability to be fully present, aware, and open to what's happening right now, both inside you and outside you.
Okay, present and open.
And then from that place of presence and openness, to take action that's guided by your deepest values, what really matters to you.
Like a motto.
Yeah, the simple way they put it is be present, open up, and do what matters. It's about being adaptable, like bamboo, bending rather than being rigid and brittle when challenges hit.
And how does being more flexible like that actually help with the stress of waiting?
Well, it fundamentally boosts your quality of life, especially when things are tough. By being more flexible, you can respond more effectively, more adaptively to the uncertainty and the challenges that waiting throws at you. It helps you stay connected to a sense of vitality, of meaning, even when there's pain or uncertainty involved.
Even amidst the pain?
Yes. There's this really profound line from the sources. There is as much living to be done in a moment of pain as in a moment of joy. Psychological flexibility helps you embrace that whole spectrum instead of just desperately chasing the joy moments and trying to run from the pain ones.
Okay, so be present is the first part, contacting the present moment.
Exactly. This means being psychologically here, now. Consciously engaging with your actual experience in this moment rather than being constantly lost in thoughts about the past or tangled up in fears about the future or just running on autopilot,
Yeah, just going through the motions.
It's about learning to flexibly shift your attention, sometimes focusing on the world outside you, what you actually see, hear, touch, sometimes noticing the world inside you, your thoughts, feelings, sensations, but doing it with curiosity, without immediately getting hooked or judging it. And the sources are clear. This is hard. Our minds drift constantly. It takes practice.
Okay. And open up that connects to acceptance.
Precisely. Acceptance in the ACT way means actively opening up and making room for those painful private experiences that inevitably show up, especially when you're waiting for something important.
Like the anxiety, the fear.
Anxiety, fear, impatience, vulnerability, sadness, confusion, that knot in your stomach, uncomfortable sensations, difficult memories, urges to just run away. All of it.
So making room for it, what does that mean?
It means dropping the struggle with it, giving it some breathing space inside you, allowing it to just be there without fighting it, pushing it away, or trying to force it to disappear. And this is crucial. It does not mean you have to like it or want it or resign yourself to feeling that way forever.
It's not approval.
Not at all. It's just acknowledging it's present and stopping the exhausting battle against it.
That's where those metaphors from the sources are so helpful, like the clipboard one.
Oh, the clipboard metaphor is fantastic for visualizing this. Imagine that clipboard holds all the difficult stuff about the waiting, the fear, the what-ifs, the impatience, the physical anxiety.
Okay.
Now, if you hold that clipboard really tight, right up against your face so it blocks your view of everything else,
Can't see anything else.
that's fusion. You're completely identified with those thoughts and feelings. They dominate everything. You're disconnected from the world, and you definitely can't do anything useful.
Right. And if you try to push it away, holding it out at arm's length with all your might.
That's experiential avoidance. You're burning immense energy, pushing, struggling against the discomfort, trying to keep it away. But look, it's still right there. It's taking up all your energy and attention.
Still can't use your hands for anything else.
Exactly. Your hands aren't free. You can't see clearly. You can't really engage with life while you're locked in that struggle. It's exhausting, distracting, and often the harder you push, the more it seems to push back.
Okay. But the third option, letting it rest gently on your lap.
That's the picture of acceptance. See? You haven't made the clipboard vanish. The difficult thoughts and feelings are still present.
Still there.
But it's no longer right in your face, blocking your view. It's not consuming all your energy just to hold it off. It's just resting there. Your shoulders can relax a bit. Your hands are free now. You can see the room. You can talk to people. You could pick up a tool. You could engage in something meaningful.
So the discomfort is still there, but its impact, its control over you is way less.
Significantly less. Letting it rest frees you up to live your life.
Okay, so acceptance, this opening up, allows you to act effectively, which is the third piece. Do what matters, guided by your values. But before we get fully there, there's also that other piece about changing how we relate to thoughts specifically. Diffusion.
Yes, diffusion, another absolute cornerstone of ACT. It's about learning to see thoughts for what they actually are. Just words, pictures, sounds, little bits of language and imagery flowing through your mind.
Not absolute truth.
Not necessarily absolute truth, no. Not commands you have to obey. Not events that are actually happening right now in the physical world. And certainly not things that require all your attention or belief. It's about unhooking from them, creating some space between you and your thoughts.
Like that other metaphor, the hands as thoughts one.
Exactly like that. Imagine your hands represent your thoughts. If you hold them clamped right over your eyes.
Can't see.
That's fusion. Your view of reality is completely blocked by your thoughts. You miss the richness of life, the possibilities for action, but lowering your hands slowly, deliberately.
It's like defusion.
Right. Your thoughts are still there. You can still see your hands, but they aren't blocking your view anymore. It's suddenly much easier to connect with the world, to see what needs doing, and to act effectively when your thoughts aren't the only thing you see.
And instead of getting stuck debating, is this anxious thought true? Chase ACT suggests asking a different question, right? Based on the sources.
A fundamentally different question. Is this thought helpful? Or is getting caught up in this thought useful for living the kind of life I want to live? This is the workability framework.
Workability, not truth.
Precisely. It shifts everything. Take that thought mentioned in the sources, I'm fat. Someone might be totally fused with it, convinced it's the absolute truth, and suffer hugely because of it.
Right.
The ACT approach doesn't get bogged down arguing if it's true or false by some objective measure. Instead, it asks, okay, when you get completely hooked by that thought, when you buy into it 100%, what happens next? Does it help you move towards a life that feels vital and meaningful?
And the example given was?
If getting caught up in I'm fat leads to feeling disgusted and depressed, which then leads to hiding on the couch, eating ice cream for comfort, avoiding exercise, avoiding seeing people, well then it's clearly not workable, is it? It's not helpful for living a life connected to health, vitality, connection, regardless of the truth of the initial thought about weight.
So focusing on workability changes the whole dynamic. It gives you a different way to relate to the thought, opens up space for different actions.
Exactly. It breaks the automatic link between thought and unhelpful behavior.
Okay, so the ACT perspective on finding peace while waiting is about cultivating this psychological flexibility. Be present. Open up to the discomfort using acceptance. See thoughts more lightly using diffusion. And then, from that freer place, do what matters. Take action guided by your values, even when it's hard or uncertain.
That's a great summary.
How does the Stoic perspective, which the sources also touch on, fit in here? Does it align, or is it different?
There's a huge amount of alignment, actually, especially around the idea of control. The Stoic perspective, drawing from thinkers like Epictetus, really hammers home this idea. The absolute chief task in life, the main road to inner peace and freedom, is to diligently, constantly separate what is genuinely under your control from what is absolutely not under your control.
Okay, make that distinction clearly.
Yes. Clearly identify the external stuff, events, other people's actions, outcomes that you simply cannot command, and then resolutely focus all your energy, your attention, your effort on the only domain where you truly have power.
Which is?
Your own choices, your own judgments and interpretations, your own responses, your own actions, your inner world, and how you choose to act outwardly.
The COVID-19 example from the sources really brings this home, applied to a big waiting crisis.
It's a perfect illustration, isn't it? Facing a global pandemic, you, as one person, cannot control the virus itself. You can't control its spread globally, its severity, what governments decide, or how every single other person behaves. Those are externals, not in your control.
Right. Feels overwhelming.
But the Stoic approach immediately asks, okay, given that, what can you control? And the answer is quite a lot, actually, about your response. You control your choices about hygiene, washing your hands. You control whether you practice social distancing. You control if you stay home when advised. You control your attitude panic or calm resolve. You control how you treat others who might be struggling.
And the peace, the sense of well-being, comes from focusing relentlessly on that sphere. The things you can do, often just small, concrete steps.
Exactly that. Stoicism isn't passive resignation. It's a very active practice of self-mastery and virtuous action within difficult circumstances. It's about embodying virtues like courage, facing the difficulty squarely, even if you can't guarantee the outcome. Self-discipline, managing your own impulses and reactions. Justice, acting fairly towards others. And wisdom, seeing reality clearly, especially making that crucial distinction about control.
So when you're waiting, you can't control what will happen, the outcome.
Yeah.
But you can control how you wait.
How you wait, your attitude during the wait, what preparations you make, how you behave towards yourself and others during that uncertain time. That's where your power truly resides.
This link between what you can control, especially your response or how you perceive things, ties in really interestingly with some of the research on stress and persistence that the sources mentioned. It adds another practical layer.
It really does. That research showed something fascinating. Acute stress, the kind we feel intensely when waiting for a big, uncertain outcome, well, it tends to impair our ability to persist when we hit setbacks.
So when you're stressed and something goes wrong, you're more likely to just give up.
Yes. If you see that setback as uncontrollable, for example, you're waiting for results on a huge project, you're super stressed, and then you hit a snag. If you think, oh, this is just bad luck, or this is because so-and-so is impossible to work with, something you feel you can't change, the stress, makes you much less likely to push through that snag.
Okay. But the research found a twist, right? About perceived control over the setback itself.
This was the key insight from that line of research. Perceiving even some degree of control over the setback, not the final outcome, but the immediate obstacle can significantly protect you against stress messing with your persistence.
How does that work?
So if you hit that same snag while waiting and stressed, but you frame it differently, maybe you see it as, okay, this happened because I made a mistake, but I can correct it, or there's a misunderstanding here, I can clarify it, or it's a technical glitch, I can figure out how to fix it.
Something you have influence over, even if it's just learning from it.
Exactly. If you perceive it as controllable in some way, you are much more likely to persist, to keep trying, even though you're still stressed about the overall outcome.
Wow. So it's not just about letting go of control over the final result, but also about actively looking for controllable elements in the challenges that pop up while you're waiting.
Yeah.
How you frame those bumps in the road.
Precisely. And it's important because stress can also lower our general belief in our own ability to persist through research. Using grit scales showed scores dropping under stress. But focusing on controllable aspects of setbacks helps maintain that vital stick-to-itiveness. It reinforces the idea that while the ultimate result might be out of your hands, how you navigate the journey, how you learn, adapt, and push through difficulties is something you have agency over. You control your response to the setback itself.
Okay, this is building into a really coherent picture. The intense stress of waiting. It comes from uncertainty, sure, but it gets dialed way up by our mind's negative stories and our deep-seated, often unhelpful drives to control things or avoid feeling bad.
Defaults that often backfire.
Right. But the path to finding peace isn't about making the uncertainty go away. It's a fundamental shift, often counterintuitive. It's about embracing the discomfort with acceptance, getting some distance from the scary thoughts with diffusion, anchoring in the present, and then channeling your energy into what you can actually control.
Your responses, your values-driven actions, how you perceive and learn from the challenges along the way.
That sums it up really well. Peace comes not from stopping the storm, but learning how to handle the ship differently while you're in it. So the million-dollar question then is, how do we actually do this? How do we put these ideas into practice when we're right in the thick of that horrible, clenching, buzzing, waiting stress?
Yeah, the practical application. The sources offer quite a few concrete strategies, all flowing from these principles we've been discussing. First off, a really crucial step seems to be cultivating awareness and maybe patience around your internal experience. Recognizing that often it's the beliefs and stories we attach to the raw feeling of anxiety.
Like this feeling means disaster is coming, or I can't cope with this uncertainty.
Exactly. Those stories are often far more painful and paralyzing than the physical sensation of anxiety itself. The thought is just pouring gasoline on the fire of the sensation.
Right, the fusion with the scary story.
Yes. And once you can step back a bit, maybe just notice, there's the disaster story thought. See it as just a story, a stream of words and images, not necessarily a prediction of reality or a statement about your coping ability. Then the raw physical feeling, the anxiety sensation itself, it can become much more manageable, less overwhelming. It might still be there, but it doesn't have to consume you.
Okay. And then a major theme in the practical advice is just relentlessly focusing your energy, your time, your attention on actions that are genuinely within your sphere of influence. This really brings together the ACT idea of doing what matters and the stoic focus on what you control.
Absolutely. So while you are actively waiting for that job news, those test results, that important text, do not put your entire life on pause. Make a conscious, deliberate effort to engage in values-guided activities.
Things that matter to you anyway.
Things that genuinely improve your quality of life today, regardless of the outcome you're waiting for. Ask yourself, what matters most to me? If it's connection, maybe make that call to a friend, spend quality time with family. If it's growth, maybe dedicate 30 minutes to learning something new or working on a personal project you care about.
If it's well-being.
Prioritize exercise, make a healthy meal, protect your sleep, spend time in nature. Don't let the waiting period become this empty, anxious void. Fill it with meaningful action where you do have control.
And practice mindfulness. That ties right into being present.
Yes. Actively paying attention with openness and curiosity to your experience right now. What do you actually see, hear, smell, taste, touch? What sensations are in your body? What thoughts are floating by? What emotions are present? The key is just observing without getting tangled, without judging, without drifting off into future worries or past regrets. Just anchor in the now, even for a minute or two at a time.
Okay. And practice acceptance when those difficult feelings or thoughts about the waiting pop up, because they will.
Oh, they definitely will. When the anxiety flares, when fear creeps in, when impatience bites, when self-doubt whispers, make room for them. Metaphorically, you might imagine just acknowledging them. Anxiety's here, or impatience is visiting. Don't fight them. Don't try to suppress them or run. Just allow them to be there without trying to change them in that moment.
Remembering it doesn't mean you like them being there.
Exactly. You just stop the exhausting, often useless struggle against their presence. Remember the clipboard metaphor. Let it rest on your lap. It's still there, but you're free to move.
And actively practice diffusion, like noticing the specific thoughts spinning around about the waiting.
Yes. Notice them. This is definitely going to be terrible. They must think I'm an idiot. I won't be able to handle bad news.
Yeah.
See these not as facts delivered from on high, but just as thoughts, mental events, words, and pictures.
Maybe even label them.
That can be really helpful. There's my catastrophizing thought again. Or, okay, that's the mind-reading story. And then ask that crucial question. Is getting hooked by this specific thought right now helpful for me? Does believing this 100% help me act in line with my values? Usually the answer is a clear no.
Right. And another practical step, explicitly identify what you can control in this situation. Maybe even write it down.
Yeah, grabbing a pen and paper can be really clarifying. Okay, waiting for medical results. What can I control? The diagnosis, the timing, what can I control? Attending appointments, asking my doctor questions, following medical advice, taking care of my health while I wait, reaching out to my support system.
Or waiting for that job offer. Can't control who they choose. Can control if I keep applying elsewhere, if I network, if I prepare for what happens if I get it, or what I'll do if I don't.
Exactly. Make that list. Acknowledge what's not in your control, maybe consciously let it go, and then pour your energy into the things that are.
And related to that, consciously practice surrendering the need for control over the outcome itself. This sounds like the hardest part.
It often is, because it cuts right against that deep instinct. It takes a deliberate, conscious acknowledgement, I am not actually in charge of this specific outcome. It can be framed as a practice in trust, maybe trusting the process, whatever it is, maybe trusting your own resilience, trusting that you can cope whatever happens.
Or as one source suggested, for some people, it might involve trusting in a higher power. Letting go of being the shaky driver.
Yes, acknowledging that maybe you're not the one ultimately steering this particular ship. Whatever frame works for you, it's about releasing that white-knuckled grip on trying to dictate the uncontrollable future.
And finally, just stay busy and engaged in life generally. Don't let the waiting shrink your world.
Please don't. Remember how experiential avoidance leads to isolation and restriction? Counteract that actively. Deliberately engage in your hobbies, do the dishes, go for a walk, call a friend, do your work. The mundane stuff, the meaningful stuff, it keeps you grounded in the reality of your life right now, not just lost in the anxious waiting bubble. It provides a different, more constructive focus.
And what about specific triggers, like that intense anxiety waiting for a text back? That's so common these days.
The advice there is really practical and honestly necessary sometimes. Set boundaries with your phone. Put it down for a while. Turn off notifications for that specific person or app if you need to. Decide on specific times you'll check it. Instead of being constantly on edge, checking every 30 seconds.
Then maybe remind yourself.
Remind yourself that other people have their own lives, their own stuff going on, their own response times. A delay in texting back is almost never a personal judgment on you, even when your anxious mind screams that it is.
These aren't passive things, are they? They all require active effort.
They are definitely active practices. They take conscious effort, intention, and repetition, especially when you're feeling stressed and pulled towards the old habits of worry and avoidance. But they work by fundamentally shifting your focus and energy away from trying to wrestle with uncontrollable outcomes or suppress uncomfortable feelings, and towards empowering yourself right where you do have agency, in your inner responses and your outward actions guided by what truly matters.
Okay, let's try and bring all this back home, make it really personal for you, the listener, right now. As we've been talking through this, maybe a specific situation where you're waiting for something uncertain in your own life has come to mind.
Just take a moment, maybe gently bring that situation into your awareness, and without judging yourself, just notice. Can you see your mind getting caught up in stories, maybe replaying past events that led up to this wait, or spinning out those fearful predictions about what might happen next? Can you spot that process of fusion happening where the thoughts feel totally real?
And as you think about this waiting, are you noticing yourself trying to push away the difficult feelings that come with it? The anxiety, maybe impatience, maybe fear. Are you distracting yourself a lot, maybe pulling back from people, or doing other things specifically to avoid or numb that discomfort?
And if you are, just gently ask yourself, how is that actually working for you in the bigger picture? Is your world getting any smaller because of this avoidance? Is it costing you anything?
Yeah, think about the situation again. Where might you be holding on most tightly to that illusion of control? What specific part of this outcome are you trying hardest to force or predict or manage, even though deep down you know you have very little or maybe no real power over it? Can you name that specific thing you're trying to control?
And thinking about everything we've explored today, being present, acceptance, diffusion, focusing on what you can control, persistence through setbacks, connecting with your values, it's just one small step you could commit to taking this week. Just one tiny thing. Maybe one small step towards accepting the discomfort. Or one moment where you practice diffusing from a particularly sticky, unhelpful thought. Or maybe just setting aside 1 minute each day to consciously connect with your breath. Right here, right now. Just one small step.
And finally, step back from the waiting for a second. Regardless of how this particular situation resolves, what values are truly important to you? Deep down, what kind of person do you want to be? How do you want to show up in your life, no matter the outcome?
And thinking about those core values, what's one small action, maybe even a tiny action that you could take today? Right now, in the middle of this uncertainty, that would align with one of those values. Maybe it's reaching out to connect with someone you care about, spending 5 minutes on a hobby that brings you meaning, taking 3 deep breaths just to care for yourself. What's one value-aligned action you can take right now?
The stress of waiting, it's undeniably real. It's potent, often painful. It comes from our amazing human minds, which can generate potential suffering through language, and from our deep instincts, often counterproductive to try and control external outcomes and avoid internal discomfort.
And peace, when you're waiting, it's fundamentally not found in making the waiting stop, or in somehow forcing certainty before it's time.
It's found instead in a really radical shift, isn't it? Transforming your relationship with the uncertainty, with the discomfort, with the thoughts that swirl around.
It involves actively cultivating that psychological flexibility we talked about. Through practices like bringing awareness to the present moment, opening up to your full experience with acceptance, getting some space from those sticky thoughts through diffusion, and anchoring your actions day by day, moment by moment, in what truly matters to you, your values.
So the core takeaway here sums to be this. This transformation involves consciously letting go of that illusion of controlling outcomes, which are mostly outside your grasp anyway, and instead focusing your precious energy, your will, your practice on the one place where you possess genuine agency.
Which is your own response, your own choices, your own actions guided by your values, and your ability to persist through the inevitable setbacks by changing how you perceive and engage with them.
Waiting isn't some weird anomaly. It's just an inevitable, often frequent part of being human, isn't it?
It really is. And maybe, just maybe, every moment of uncertainty, every period of waiting is less of a problem we need to eliminate and more of an invitation.
Invitation.
Yeah. Not an invitation to worry more, definitely not. Not an invitation to try harder, to force things, but maybe a profound invitation to practice. To practice being present, to practice opening up to your experience exactly as it is, discomfort and all, and to practice acting on what truly matters to you. Maybe discovering resilience and a deeper kind of peace right there in the fertile ground of the unknown itself. What if the waiting isn't actually the obstacle? What if, in some way, it's the path?